A Retro Ramble with.
This week's special guest is a person who got me into making YouTube videos over 10 years ago. Started watching his channel back in 2010 and have enjoyed watching him waffle and talk about his collection of old consoles and computers, but also see him playing games badly to see what they look like. It gives me great pleasure to chat to Steve Benway.
Definitely. And obviously your catchphrase is playing the game badly so you can see what it looks like. Have you ever been tempted to have that on a t-shirt before?
I have done t-shirts. I can't remember if it says that. I think it does actually. I did several. There is an ad or a link somewhere. Actually, I think the link was on my website, which is now defunct, so you probably can't get to the site that's selling them. I think I sold about 2, but they weren't good value. Not something I could do anything about. It's like the companies who sell these t-shirts, they've obviously got to make their money, but I felt kind of embarrassed putting my catchphrase on them and then seeing how much they cost. And it's like, yeah, please buy them, but it's not good value.
Yeah, I think you see that. I think they're about $30 or something like that, aren't they? Which is quite a lot.
I think my ones were about 20 quid, and I'm like, 20 quid for a t-shirt, and I don't even think the quality was that good. So I'm not putting the ad back up or the link or whatever, because nah.
It's interesting you mentioned the website, because was it called Retro Gaming Collector or something along those lines?
That's
And I remember
RetroGamingCollector.com.
Yes, and I remember looking at that.
It was my main thing for quite a long while. It made me some money for a little while, but I got so into the YouTube thing that I focused more on YouTube than I did on the website, and it became quite out of date because I've been tracking the prices of consoles and computers and whatnot secondhand on eBay, and like minimum and maximum prices. And because I focused on YouTube so much, I didn't have time for that, and the whole site just got out of date, and links died, and things just didn't get completed. And in the end, I just thought it wasn't paying for itself anymore, and it was all out of date. And I thought, no, I can't put my name to this. It got embarrassing, so I took it down.
That's the problem, I suppose, isn't it? Because the prices change, especially now, so rapidly. 1 minute they can be really cheap, but then the next minute they're costing a fortune. I think you bought at the right time as well.
I don't even... Yes, definitely. I don't really know what things cost anymore. I've not kept track. It's like, because I stopped buying now anyway, I don't look at what things cost on eBay, and I've got no idea what any of this stuff's worth.
Have you stopped buying because there is nothing else for you to buy? You've got everything.
No, I haven't got the space.
I've not noticed.
But for those who aren't familiar, it's up to the ceiling, and there's a little alcove back there, and it's up to the ceiling around there, and it's up to the ceiling back there, and I've got stuff here. There literally isn't anywhere left to put anything. So I've got a lockup across town, which I've actually taken everything out of to bring here. And I could put stuff in there, but then what's the point? Because I can't play with it in the lockup. So the only things I buy now are little Chinese handhelds, just for making videos of. I'm waiting for one today. They're almost a collection in themselves.
Yeah, there's so many of those out there now, aren't they, coming out, and it seems to be the in thing again.
They are getting better. They're slowly improving. A Dreamcast emulation's getting quite good. PSP isn't quite there yet. N64's getting there. There's this really expensive Windows 10 based thing that will play PS2. I can't afford that. It's cool that they've made it.
I've noticed there's certain machines that they never quite crack the emulation on. I was doing a stream last week with the Jaguar, and they've never quite managed to get that right at all.
No, and there's only really one emulator I'm aware of for it, and I don't even know if it's still being developed. I can't remember what it's called. Virtual Jaguar, maybe. Don't know. There's versions of it like on Android. I don't even know about on PC. On these little Chinese Linux-based things, but it won't. It's just not up to it. It'll just about do Tempest 2000 on Android. Is very well optimized for that. But you try and play anything else and forget it.
Yeah, that's what I found. So I'm going to ask you the generic question that I'm sure you've been asked a million times before. How did it all start?
Okay. Oh, I've never been asked that. No, I have actually. It started. It was a fluke. Wait, are we talking about YouTube or the game collecting?
Well, I suppose. What was your first memories of? What was your first console or computer? Your first memory of?
Right. Okay. I'll say gaming. Actually, my first gaming memory is of. I started gaming before video games even existed, pretty much. Certainly in the UK. 1972, Sega electromechanical arcade game called Missile. I was 4 years old. It was at the Working Men's Club in New Bradwell, Milton Keynes, where my granddad used to drink. We'd go there with him on a Sunday. Is this machine? I'm like, oh, what's that? He picks me up, puts 10p in the slot, says, here, push that button when the planes come over, shoot them down. And that was it. I was smacked and hooked, and all the amusements things I could go on, I did. And then 1970, probably 74, I got a Pong machine in the laundrette in Toaster where I lived. And my mum stuck 10p in it, said, here you go, you hold that knob, you hold that knob. And we played Pong, and my mind was blown. That was like the first time I'd seen a video game. And I thought it was magic, because how could you possibly control something on a TV screen? That just wasn't supposed to be possible. You were meant to watch, not control it. And I was like, this is incredible.
It's funny because that's exactly... Everybody has that same memory of seeing Pong on a television screen and thinking, how are you controlling something that's on a telly that isn't being broadcast to you?
Yeah. It's something that only people of a certain age will recognize as being a thing. The youth of today have grown up with computer games, consoles, you name it. You know, TV is interactive now, where us young but not quite so young people, we remember it was miraculous and should be impossible.
It's interesting you say that, because it's almost like our generation went through stages. So like you said, you had the Pong stage, and then we moved on to like where you would play games in the arcade, and then you'd come home and play a version of it on your console or home computer, which you had to use your imagination a lot of the time to make it like the arcade, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I had an Atari 2600, and Space Invaders on that was kind of disappointing, because it had all the different variations and everything, but I just wanted proper Space Invaders, and it wasn't. And Asteroids, the basic concept was the same, but that wasn't Asteroids, and it kind of sort of annoyed me. But then when Atari did their own stuff that wasn't based on arcade games, Adventure, that blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like that before, and I knew I wanted one at that point. That was 77, I think I saw that. Maybe 78. I didn't get an Atari until 83. Things had moved on a bit by then, and Activision were doing their thing, and it was quite an impressive thing for the time.
Was that what was your first console computer you owned then as a child?
The first gaming device I got was wasn't it? it was Nintendo, but it was branded Time Out, called Toss Up. It was like the British variation on the Nintendo Ball. Where you just got the little LCD character, he's throwing the balls up and juggling. That was me for 20 quid from Roy's Bargains in Stony Stratford. There'll be a few people who remember that place who come from Milton Keynes. And then your various, well, they weren't LED, were they? They were some weird, I don't know quite what they were. Galaxy Invader 1000 and Astro Wars.
Astro Wars, I remember that.
Yeah, it's a classic. And then my first thing that plugged into the TV was Inatone Mark 10.
I got that was like a Pong machine, is it?
Yeah. It's the one that had a joystick rather than a paddle.
Oh, right.
It was quite good because you'd got a shooting game on it where you controlled the crosshair with the little analog joystick. I've got one here somewhere. I say I have. I actually might have thrown it out because it would work for about 5 minutes and then it would just drift. The signal would drift and the TV wouldn't lock onto it, and you'd it wasn't worth the time spent plugging it in and sticking batteries in it and all that.
Well, that was the other thing, because I had the Firefox F7. That was my first little handheld console, and at the time they didn't come with the power supply, did you? Had to buy them separately, and so you had to use
or put batteries in.
Yeah, were they just called the C ones, or they weren't the massive ones, but they were the middle-sized ones.
Yes, I think they were C. D were the big funky ones.
Yeah, and so you
got some here.
But you'd play it for a bit and it'd start to fade and sound would be going and you think, oh, my batteries are going.
Yeah, and they used them pretty quick.
So, moving on from that, and to be honest, this is what fascinates me, because of your granddad showing you that thing at that point in time. All the rest is history to the point where you are now. So I think that's really good.
It's been a long journey,
and it's not over yet.
No. I mean, I'm sitting here. I've got a PS2 there and a PS4 right next to it, and I'm thinking, well, it's not going to be long before the PS4's retro. And when I started collecting retro, I was only going to be buying 8-bit computers, and then I was like, okay, I'll buy consoles as well. But I wouldn't buy a Master System or a NES because they weren't retro enough. So I was like, ColecoVision, Philips Video Pack, Ataris, that kind of thing, Intellivision, but no Master System. No, too recent. And, well, that changed a lot quicker than I expected, because now it's like PS2 is significantly retro and PS3 is getting there.
Yeah.
I haven't got a PS3 at the minute. I keep looking on Amazon and thinking, it doesn't feel retro to me. I'll play it as a current system quite happily.
It's interesting because I think, is it Electric Adventures who's just recently bought a PlayStation 3, the one with the hard drive, the first one that would play the PlayStation 2, but you didn't have to mess about with it. And
the fat 60 gig.
That's the one, yeah. And it's interesting because in some of your videos that when you first started, you talk about how you don't like modern systems, a bit like you said, in modern games. And then at what point do they become retro, like you say? So the PS4 and the Xbox One, obviously in 5 to 10 years, start to fall into that category.
Yeah, they do. I don't know if it's when the manufacturer stops supporting them. I mean, I think you can still buy stuff, the PS3 on the Sony store, I guess. I don't know. I haven't got one, but I hope so, because I've got a load of stuff that's download only.
And that is the other issue, isn't it? The download only part. I think there's going to be a point where obviously when things change and they don't say you can bring over your PS3's stuff to the PS7 or whatever it is, that sort of disappears then, because there is nowhere, it just vanishes, doesn't it?
Well, I thought that about the PSP Go. I thought the PSP Go is going to be a disaster because it was download only. And as soon as they stop supporting it, if you buy one second hand, what's on it is all you're ever going to have, except custom firmware.
Yeah.
I eventually bought a PSP Go specifically for the custom firmware because I think the store is shut down, but it's like, well, the emulators and everything. It was the first little handheld I used as an emulator system, and obviously you can play backups on it, which is great. And I've got plenty of the little UMD discs as well. And obviously, I wouldn't download any games I don't own.
Yeah, obviously. Like we all don't. Nobody would.
Yes.
The fascinating thing about that as well, though, and I know we've flitted about, but
yeah,
a lot of the older consoles and computers sold based on how easy it was to make backups for.
Yes, Spectrum, swapping tapes in the playground.
Yeah.
I had an Electron, so I didn't get to swap any tapes, and I'd left school by then anyway, but it's like no one else had one. There was no tape swapping, but yeah, I remember all the kids swapping their Spectrum games.
And I think I remember watching...
tape on the stereo.
Yeah, the high-speed dub, weren't it, where you had to press a button and it went a bit quicker.
Yeah.
I remember it well. Obviously, I were only making backups of tapes I'd already owned, obviously.
Of course. Goes without saying.
But I remember watching the documentary Commercial Breaks, where they had, was it Dave from Ocean Software? I forgot his surname now. And they went round the market, and he said it wasn't so much the playground backup people, it was more the people who'd like have hundreds on a market stall.
Yeah,
with the counterfeit covers and everything.
I never actually saw that, but then, yeah, I was buying me games from like news agents and places like that. R.S. McCall's and yeah, I don't think I've. No, I once bought a game off a market, and it was an original, and the guy ripped me off. I gave him a 20, and he told me I gave him a 10, and never bought games from him again. But no, I didn't see any. I didn't see pirate ones.
I think I only ever saw pirate Amiga games on markets, like Thursday markets, especially where in Chesterfield where you live, they have, the Thursday market that they have.
Yeah,
that's probably the first place I saw copies as like being sold openly. Sorry, I have a weird story about my friend. He worked in the police force, and we went to a car boot one day, and he was behind me in the police car, and I didn't realise it was him. So anyway, I pulled onto the park at the car boot, and he followed me on, and he told the guy at the gate, "Oh, he's not got insurance or something," just so he could get on. He didn't have to pay to get. And he pulled up behind me, and I didn't recognise him at first. And he gets out of the car, and you literally looked where the stalls were, and there were people running into the fields with like cases and stuff, because everything thought it were a raid, and all he did is followed me in to say hello. And we laugh about it now. And I know I've heard you talk about it before. So when you lived in Milton Keynes, did you frequent the arcades a lot?
Yes. Not many of them. The first place I used to go, The first place I used to go actually wasn't in Milton Keynes. It was just outside. There was like a campsite, if you like, for camping and caravans and stuff like that. A place called Cosgrove, and they had an arcade there, which was crap actually. But I used to go there because it was local to where I lived. And then there was roller skating in the Agora in Wolverton. It was like an indoor market, but on, I can't remember what, Saturday nights, Sunday nights, I think Thursday nights, whatever, they'd have roller skating. And there was an arcade there, downstairs and upstairs. There was a bar upstairs, so it was like, you didn't play up there because there were heads and getting Larry and everything. But downstairs, it was like the older stuff. They had Star Wars down there, and I mean they had it from quite early on when there was just a lot of black and white stuff like Gunfight and
Oh yeah.
What was that submarine one where you got the periscope and you're firing up
Was it Upscope
the ships
or
on
Periscope or something like that?
something like that? Yeah, I mean there's two versions of that kind of game. There's one where you're dropping the depth charges down, and another one where you're firing the torpedoes up. But they had the one with the scope. A lot of the really old black and white pre-Space Invaders stuff. They had Speed Freak, which is the racing game you see on my intro sequence. They had that for quite a while, and I love that game. It's absolutely fantastic and way, way ahead of its time when you think about how the graphics work. Never see that anymore.
No,
I don't know if there are any working.
I'm going to say I bet a lot of them have probably died just because of components failing, etc.
I would think so, yeah. Something about vector graphics games. I mean, Tempest used to die in the arcade even back then. I'd be amazed if there was a working Tempest machine now. They used to overheat, and it was like go into the Agora arcade every week, and it was maybe like one time in 5 the Tempest machine would be working.
Yeah. It's funny you should talk about the vector graphics, because again, a few weeks ago I did a stream on the Vectrex, and I'd never seen it. I think my friend had one, but I'd never literally played on it. And I'm just amazed. You're going to point one out, aren't you? It's there.
Oh, I don't know.
I can see it, yeah.
Yeah.
But the graphics on it, I couldn't believe how, I know it was from an emulator, but how crisp, and I think it was at pole position. If I'd have got that back in the day, I'd have been ecstatic. Do you know what I mean?
It was astounding at the time. I didn't have one back in the day. I had an Atari, and it was a toy shop in Milton Keynes, Taylor and McKenna, and then it got taken over by Beatties, and they sold them, and all the kids would go there. And it was like, ignore the Atari. There was the Intellivision, ColecoVision, people would crowd around that, but mostly they were all crowding around the Vectrex. And it was just, I mean, they're kind of limited, the gameplay, because they've got very limited memory, but the graphics are just so unique. And even a good emulator doesn't capture it, because while the resolution you can get the sharpness of it, what you don't get is the brightness of it.
Yeah.
And they glow, and they'll try and emulate that on a good emulator, but it's never quite bright enough.
Yeah. I noticed that when we went to replay it, obviously they got them set up and you could actually play the real systems. And I do like emulation, as you know, it's my way into playing the games, but I wish I'd got the room and money and everything else to get the systems. So I do envy what you've got.
A time machine.
Yeah.
It's most of what I've got, I haven't got because I've ever been loaded. It's just that when I started collecting, this stuff was cheap. It was like it was, no one was thinking about retro. It's like, this stuff's obsolete, get it out, sell it cheap, someone else can have it, it's taking up room in the loft. And I'm like, yep, give me that. The Commodore PET I bought for £10.
That's unbelievable. I remember at school the when they got the BBC macros, throwing all the Commodore PETs into a skip. There were about 10 of them.
Yeah. My C64 GS tenner on the market. Again,
it's crazy.
It's just buying at the right time and being interested in it at the right time. To all the kids out there now, keep your PS4, get your PS5, but keep your PS4, put it in the loft, don't get rid of it.
Yeah, if only we could get hindsight or a time machine.
Yeah.
So talking about the Amiga, have you still got your tower, your A4000? Was it a tower? Oh, I'm drooling now.
Yeah, I haven't turned it on since I got here. I'm presuming it survived. I mean, it is a fragile thing. Literally, if you pick it up wrong, the case will fall apart.
Yeah.
It's the way, I don't know if I put it together wrong or if they designed it wrong, but it never quite fit together properly. So literally, if you move it in a clumsy fashion, it all falls apart. It's done that more than once.
I don't know what it is about the Amiga. Everybody who watches my channel knows that's my all-time favourite computer ever, and I think
I'm liking your workbench picture just behind your head there.
that is actually made
Yeah.
from beads, them hammer beads.
Wow.
My friend
That's
did
impressive.
it, and he was wanting to get rid of it, and I said, "Well, don't throw it away. I'll have it." So I do love my Amiga. I think it's just because I was at that age, it sort of is ingrained more on my memory. You know, like the teenage years, and it's that nostalgia into. Have you got a system that you feel the same about? Is there one in particular, or?
There used to be. These days, not so much. I mean, I would have said the Acorn Electron because that was my first computer I was able to do anything. I had a tape recorder for it, so I could load games on it, and that was the first one I was able to do that. And I would have said the Electron for ages, except having gone back to it after so many years, a lot of the games that I remember really, really fondly don't stand up the test of time very well. It's like I remember playing Commando on it and loving it, and I play it now, and it is so slow. You can almost count the seconds between frames, and a lot of it is like that. And I haven't got a joystick for it, and I can't abide playing with keyboard anymore. So it's like I remember it fondly, but the reality of it now is not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
So I still love the Atari 2600. I would rather play really primitive, basic Atari games than anything on a NES or a Master System. And even like stuff from that era, I'd rather play Atari than Intellivision or ColecoVision. So Vectrex, give me both.
Yeah, like a hybrid.
Yeah.
It is interesting that you go back for certain things and you play a game again and you think, ooh, what were I thinking? That there is certain games that stand out, like I say, and I think the Amiga, because it was not 3D, but it was fairly modern graphics. It wasn't like you say the 8-bit sprites that were quite blocky and slow.
It could do some good polygon graphics. I mean, there was 3D on there, like Jeff Crammond's Formula One Grand Prix. That was great. Still very playable.
Yeah, definitely. It is a good thing. What's your opinion on games, future gaming? Where do you think it's going? Do you think?
Oh, you see, I want to say VR, but I've got VR. I've got the PSVR 1, and I love it, but I don't play it very often because it's harder. Not that the games are harder to play, but it's harder on your brain, on your eyes, on your body, trying to stop your stomach churning. And I mean, I'm not someone who suffers from motion sickness, and it's not all of the games that do it. It takes so much more of your attention and mental effort to play, not to mention just the whole palaver of putting that thing on, and getting all the wires in the right places and everything and setting it up, and you put your move controllers down but you can't see because you've got your headset on and you're like, it's hard work, and that means I probably only play it perhaps a quarter or a fifth of the time that I'm gaming on the PS4. It's great, but it's hard work. So, and I mean, I'm a die-hard gamer. I absolutely love gaming. I think a casual gamer would do that once and be like, yeah, that's interesting, but I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
So it probably will always be just a niche.
It's interesting you say that, because I had the Oculus Rift CV1. I bought that.
Yep.
And exactly like yourself, I played it quite a lot when I first got it and enjoyed it. I found it hard with glasses because you had to put it over your glasses. I don't know why they didn't develop some software that you could adjust so the screen adjusts to your eyes. You wouldn't need your glasses then.
Even the Nintendo Virtual Boy will adjust so you don't need glasses. What on earth are all these other companies? I mean, Sony, you have to wear your glasses. Why?
Yeah.
Cheap. Android, put your phone in it type headsets. You don't need your glasses. So I don't know what they're playing at.
Yeah, and it would have been such an easy fix, and I probably would have enjoyed it more. And to be honest, I did enjoy the games, and I think the novelty wore off. But then it was more the apps. There was one app called Big Screen. I don't know if you've heard of that, where you can sit in a cinema or wherever, and if your friends have got VR, they sit in with you and you can see them. And we had on the big screen
that's cool.
An emulator, the Amiga emulator, so we were playing the Amiga on like a cinema screen while we were all sat talking and watching, and that bit, great. I really enjoyed that. But yeah.
What I would like that I don't think they've done, I want Grand Theft Auto City, never mind the storyline, just the open world sandbox in VR with your mates. So you can steal a car together and go rampaging through the city and whatever in VR, or just walk around and enjoy the scenery. You know, it's just pretty free roaming, do what you like online with your mates. And if they've done that, I haven't found it yet.
Yes, something what's totally free sandbox mode or whatever you want to call it, where you can do anything and there's no particular blockages, if you like. Yeah, definitely. I think the one thing that annoys me with modern gaming is that you buy a game and then you end up having to download more. I bought Flight Simulator 2020 on disc because I didn't want to do the download. Installed it on the 10 DVDs and then still had to download 16 gigabyte file.
It's like the disc is just a dongle. It's just the thing that says I bought this. You stick it in your computer or your console and then you download the game anyway, and it's like, what's the point in the disc? That is the thing about modern gaming that aggravates me. PS2 was the last pure games console. You stuck your disc in, you played it, and that was it. What you bought was what you got, and I miss that.
Yeah, definitely. I miss that anticipation as well. I don't think that anticipation's there of a new game coming out that you would see in a magazine, or you get a demo or whatever, and then you go and buy it. It's just there to download straight away. There's no build up.
I don't know. I've got a little. 99% of the time, I would totally agree with you. I want Cyberpunk 2077. And currently, I don't think you can download it because it was broken. Sony were like, get this off our store. So the only way to buy it is they've got it in supermarkets and stuff, but it's like 50 quid, and I ain't paying 50 quid for it. No. I'm waiting until like the shops open and CEX or whoever start getting them in at a slightly better price. And I've got a lot of anticipation for that. I mean, there's going to be the huge big download to get the patch that fixes all the broken bits, but
I think that's the full game.
Excited to play that. Yes, I think so.
That's version 2.
Yes,
it's interesting as well that you touch on the price of games, because that's something you hear a lot, that they weren't as expensive, but when you actually look in the old Argos catalogues and stuff, they were £59 and £50, and Mario Kart, Mortal Kombat all those were.
Virtua Racing, any of the Super FX games, Atari 2600 games, And in 83, I don't know what they cost when it first came out, but in 83, an Atari 2600 game was 30 quid, which in 1983 was a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the thing is, your games that cost 70 quid back in the late 80s, your Super FX games, you didn't mind paying that much because you knew there was extra hardware in that cartridge. You were getting something really special. Where 70 quid for a game now, and they just want to charge that for everything. I mean, it is a big game, and it's probably not unfair, but we've got used to having them more affordable, and the idea of it going up kind of it's a big jump, a £10 jump, just like that. It's not like it's creeping up. It's just like they were 60, now they're 70. Nah.
They're getting to the point of the cost of the consoles nearly, which is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the thing that sort of annoys me with that is like the FIFA games, where you would buy FIFA 20 for £50, then FIFA 21 comes out and you can pick it up for £9, and it's like, why?
The only FIFA I'll ever play is on the Mega Drive, the first one. That's it. I'll probably won't even play that. But there's one. I like the football game on. I think it's on the Atari. I think the Intellivision did it better. And there's one on the PS1. Actua Soccer. I like that. That's a really good football game.
Actua Soccer. I had that on the PC. Because it was Gremlin that made that, weren't it? From Sheffield, I think.
I think so. I'm not sure. Yeah. Good game.
So, let's talk about YouTube a bit, because that's where you're famous for. You've become a superstar. How did you get into that? How did it begin?
Fluke. No. Well, yes. It started as storage medium for videos that I was making to entertain people on a different site. I was into webcams and webcam chat, and I'd started out on a site called Camerads, which had no audio chat, but it had text chat. And then I moved over to another site called Stickcam, which had audio chat. Whoever was streaming was the only person who had audio. So kind of like doing a live stream on YouTube. And I would sit and read stories, kids' stories, but not read them as they were written, and literally just mess about with them and take the piss. And that seemed to go down really well. It was like most of the people on there were American, and it was like, here's this English guy with this English accent, and look at listen to what he's reading, and they seemed very entertained by it. So I recorded a video doing that, and I wanted somewhere to put it because you couldn't store videos on the cam site. So YouTube came along, and I thought, right, I'll stick it on there, and then didn't do anything else with it for about a year. And I did a video of my dogs, and that's still on my channel. That's the earliest video on my channel, I think. And then it was like, okay, I've got this channel. Don't know what to do with it. Didn't really know how it worked. I'd record big batches of videos and upload them all in one go, kind of treating it like a website where it's like they're pre-formed and you browse through it, which took me ages to work out that's not how it's done. So I did a video of my collection just because I didn't know what else to do, and all of a sudden that took off, and people were like, well, show us more, show us your games. And I didn't know if they meant, do they want to see the boxes, the cases, or do they want to see the games being played? So I played them, and I haven't stopped. The idea was I'd just play and make a video of each game that I own, but kind of kept getting more games, and I've never stopped.
It's interesting. Did you ever for 1 minute think you'd have like 7 million views from people all over the world watching the stuff you put on?
Not at the start, no. It was weird. At the start, it was a lot easier to get a lot of attention very quickly, and it snowballed for a little while. And I think when I hit 1,000 subscribers, it didn't take long to hit 2,000 subscribers. And for a while, it went very quickly. And I thought, yeah, I'm actually going to get famous here. I'm going to be one of these big names. And then...
Which you are.
Really not. And then YouTube became saturated and everything got harder and it all slowed down. And channel growth for me now is about the same now as it was like right at the start. It's slow, but I'm not at the point now where I'm bothered by that. It's like I've got an audience. I'm very happy with them. If it doesn't grow by a single person, okay, I'd like it to grow by a bit more, but it's like I've got the audience and I'll keep doing it with the audience I've got and be very happy with it.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like about the channel, that it's natural. It's not... Some channels can be overproduced, and I sort of... It's like watching television then to me, but I'd rather have that more, like a closer relationship to the channel, so you can talk to people and just chew the cud basically about your hobby. And that's what I like about your channel. It's really good.
It's a deliberate choice to do it like that. I saw the point where YouTube changed and they were actively promoting channels that were producing stuff like TV channels, and stopped promoting the people who were just doing their hobby for fun. And the channels that were just doing it for fun seem to go by the wayside. I think it's just that we didn't get to see them anymore because they weren't promoted. And for me, it's just been a conscious choice. That's what I would like to watch. That's what I will continue to make. I know there's an audience for it. And I'm just too damn lazy to do decent production. just stick a camera pointed at the telly, pointed at me, go blah. I mean, effort? No, I just want to have fun.
It's funny because I was laughing at your stream last week when you kept coming up with the Sony adverts, the camera, and you'd be talking away, and I'm thinking, it's Sony, Steve, it's on Sony. Then you go, oh, damn camera. But that's what I like. That's what I like.
Quality production values. Yeah, there are none.
You can see, because I obviously look at your channel, and I think it was about 11 years ago when you did your 500 subs thank you video, and then like you say, it jumped to 2,000, 1,000, 2,000, and then now you're obviously at 20 plus thousand. So people must enjoy it or they wouldn't keep coming back. It's simple as that, isn't it?
They're just too lazy to unsubscribe.
You've took the unsubscribe button off, and I can't see it.
I don't know how many of the actual subscribers watch. I mean, I'm chuffed to bits to have any. Most of my views come from search, but I do have an absolutely die-hard audience who, at least, I mean, I don't know a fraction of them, but the ones who comment regularly, I recognize them, and I'll sit and I can't reply to all of them, but I'll sit there for an hour or two and just reply to comments, and I recognize them, and some of them I've had the pleasure of meeting, like yourself.
Well, I was going to say, 10 years ago, when we went 10 years ago to the replays, and I remember it as if it was yesterday, because I was quite nervous, because obviously you were big on there, but it was just like talking to somebody I'd known for years, because it was like the same interest. So
I think it's a misconception people have about YouTubers, even with a slightly bigger channel. And I don't consider it to be a big channel by any means. I see the people with 1 million and they don't consider themselves to be big. It's like when you've got your 20 million channels and whatever. It's like YouTube versus television. You see someone who's on television and they're a celebrity, and it's easy to think you're watching this person on a screen, so they're a celebrity, where speaking entirely for myself, I'm about as far from a celebrity as you could get. I'm just some geezer who's sitting here going blah in his like little studio flat in the middle of town. I
suppose it's like that when you're at school and you think the teachers are like got a power position, but then when you leave and you see them, you still see that person as a teacher, but you realise they're no different to anybody else. They're just an adult, like we are.
Yeah, they're just a person.
I've just realised what it says on your T-shirt, and I was just laughing. I paused my game to be here. I love it. It's excellent.
It's a good.
So, I think just one last question. If you could pick any machine to have that you haven't got, what would it be?
Okay, well, I'm going to ignore the PS5 because I want one, but that's not retro. X68000. Sharp? Is it Sharp?
Sharp, yeah, Sharp.
Yeah. I've never seen one in the real world at all. But what I've seen of other people who've got them is they are, I mean, theoretically, they're about the same power as an Amiga in terms of the CPU, but their graphics chips are absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't dare ever buy one, partly because it's like import and partly it's Japanese and you've got to have this operating system. I don't know if you can just stick a disc in and play it or if you've got to load it from the operating system, but I don't know how they work and I don't want to spend that much money to then find I can't use the thing. But
and it's the cost of the games as well, I think, for that system.
If someone was to say to me, you can have any system you like pre-configured with all the games ready set up and it will work, that's what I'd have.
I did actually, again, on the stream, because I've been doing a series called Systems I've Never Owned, playing the gameplay, and I've done the X68000, or I forget what number it is, and I was quite surprised how good the games were. Like you say, and it was wow. But it definitely had its own operating system. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the thing that separates them from the Amiga is sprite scaling. It's like the Amiga will do sprites, but all it does is move them around. It can't scale them. The X68000, it scales them. So I mean, it's kind of up there near the Saturn in that regard.
Yeah, the Saturn. I never realised until I watched your stream last week how good at scaling sprites it was. That Gale Racer was amazing. It looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, people, they look at the Saturn and they think it's not as good as a PS1 because it doesn't do the 3D as well, but it wasn't originally designed for doing 3D. It was meant to be a sprite scaling powerhouse. It was meant to be a home console that did all the super scaler games that they'd done in the arcades. And then all of a sudden, scaled sprites were old hat, and it was all about 3D. So they stuck another CPU in it and said, "Yeah, that'll do." And we didn't even get the sprite scaling stuff over here, but it's awesome at that kind of thing.
Definitely, it really impressed me watching it. It's funny you talk about the Saturn because I think it's the 5th generation, so it's like the 3DO in there, the PlayStation 5, not PlayStation 5, PlayStation. You've got me on PlayStation 5.
Yes.
But so many underrated good systems that didn't get the day, if you like, but you go back and play them and you think this is quite good. Like Need for Speed on the 3DO, I still say that's one of my favourite versions of the game.
That's totally my favorite. I mean, I only like 2 Need for Speeds, that one and the one on the PS1, and I think the one on the 3DO is better. Not much else on the 3DO that I really like. I mean, Road Rash, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Starfighter 3000.
That's another good one, yeah. Have you got a 3DO, or is that one of the systems?
Yeah.
No, that's a stupid question. Have you got all the versions? The Sanyo, the Panasonic?
just the Panasonic.
Well, can I just say it's been a pleasure chatting, and thank you very much for agreeing to come on. It's always a pleasure because your knowledge is unsurpassed, I think, with the retro stuff.
I don't think I remember half of what I once knew, but thank you very much for having me on. It has been a pleasure. Likewise. Yeah, thank you.
Next time on A Retro Ramble.
And it turned out that was the most viewed part of the chart show. Like, people used to turn off. Nobody cared about the top. See what the latest sales releases of each game, and I just wanted to see the retro bit. So,
Yeah.
But they never really capitalised on it. They bunched a couple of episodes together, but that's about it. They never made like a proper retro gaming show, unfortunately. Even though it was like one of the most popular things on the channel.
I would just like to say a big thank you to all the special guests who took the time out of their busy schedules to appear on Retro Ramble. It is really much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of A Retro Ramble with. All links to the special guest channel can be found in the description below this video. If you enjoyed watching, then please like and subscribe and click the bell notification icon to be informed of when the next episode is uploaded.